Hi, everybody. I'm Carrie Hastings. I coordinate the Urban Water Funders with the Funders Network, and I'm here with Martin Doyle. Martin's the director for water policy at the Nicholas Institute and at Duke University. And today he's going to be sharing about the Aspen Water Strategy Group at the Aspen Institute. Welcome, Martin. And we'd love for you to just start off by telling us a bit more about the Aspen Water Strategy Group and the role that you've played.
Yep, the Aspen National Water Strategy Group is focused on national in the nationwide sense, so not in the federal government sense. It's a group of about 30 people who have been gathering over the past 2 years. They're multi-sector, bipartisan, so private sector, NGO sector, government sector, and bipartisan between people who are very progressive and really grumpy farmers from the Western United States. So we get the entire range of things. And over the past 18 months, this group has been focused on trying to identify what I call the big moves. What are the big moves that the nation needs to be making in order to ensure water security across the nation, from the national sense all the way down to the local sense. So that's the Water Strategy Group, and we'll be releasing that report on February 5th.
So, Martin, you mentioned the scale being kind of national, but not meaning federal. Tell us a bit more about just kind of the scale of some of the work and really who the target audience is and what some of the asks are that came out of this effort.
Yep. Obviously, with water, there will always be a role for the federal government or for national entities, whether those are multinational corporations or entities that are working at the entire nation scale. But the scale that we're and the target that we find is most needed to be fleshed out is what we're calling regional scale or what we're calling basin scale. So these could be multiple states, but the watershed within multiple states or the macro aquifer within those states. And so the target that the groups that we really want to be activated by this water strategy are groups within a hydrologic area to start developing policies, practices, and financial instruments as well that can start to move towards security for that particular region. So I think the challenge that we've had with water management in the United States is it's either been federal or it's been super local. And what we're finding is we need to start doing some very concerted work at this really awkward in between scale, like the adolescent scale, when everything's awkward and doesn't quite work. But if we can get at that scale, we think that there's a lot of traction and a lot of movement that's possible, but it's a really difficult scale to work at.
So then tell me more about who are the partners, the stakeholders, and how will you continue to advance the work, make decisions, set priorities, et cetera.
Yeah, I think that the primary partners that we really need to start activating and motivating are state level leaders to start working across states rather than just within states. So we really need to start finding kind of visionary state water agency leaders, and we need to open up their ability and capacity to work between two different states. All too often, these state agencies are mandated by their authorizing legislation to only work within the boundaries of their own states. So we need those leaders to be able to work across the different states, and we probably need them and the private sector within those different regions to have mechanisms to work together or mechanisms to require them to work together across these broader geographic regions as well. And that's going to mean creating some new types of governance structures. So the Colorado River Basin, the Upper Colorado, the Lower Colorado, we're used to those. Those are the types of governance organizations that we're talking about. But that structure is very unique and it needs to be created and scaled in a lot of different geographies across the US and to be replicated for different purposes, not just allocating water of a particular river basin, but also starting to regulate water quality at a different scale, to start regulating or start encouraging water affordability at a basin scale or at an aquifer scale instead of just at the utility scale. So we really need to rethink the big push here is to really rethink the scale of water governance in the US. And that means working across all of these different scales. And that is going to be driven by sectors beyond geography, beyond government, demanding that those geographies start to be created. Because what we're finding is the non-governmental sector is very frustrated with the constraints of government itself. And so they're the ones who are really starting to push and saying we need a different governance structure in order for us to produce microchips, in order for us to secure the water, affordable water for these different sectors that are going to happen, in order to make sure that our kids can actually swim in these rivers. So it's government being responsive to these demands that have existed for decades. We just need to move that needle substantially over the next decade.
Hmm. And so who is holding this work as it moves forward? Is it the Aspen Institute, or are there other key nonprofits, universities, like the role that you play? When you talked about cultivating state leadership, how is that going to be done and through what vehicle?
That's the next step. So the next
Okay.
step, and that is the next step is not going to be held by the Aspen Institute or by Duke. So the way that we have set this up of the Aspen National Water Strategy Group is we have created what we think is a robust strategy for the nation. And what we are going to be doing now is trying to identify the organizations, the coalitions that can take different parts of this strategy and move them forward. So it really is, it's a very overarching type of an approach. But what we need to do now is start translating that into blueprints of action and slicing off these different sub-strategies for different coalition types to take forward. So there's, for instance, a strategy that's specific on infrastructure. So that will feel very familiar to some of the people in urban water network kinds of spaces. There's also a strategy on rural, and that probably is a group. In order to move the rural strategy forward, I think we're going to need very different coalitions than we have had over the past decade in the water funder kind of a group. To be honest, we're going to need much more conservative groups, politically conservative groups, to engage with us to get a lot of these rural communities on board with some of these different, or to implement some of these strategies going forward. So we'll be looking for people to take this up, but we are definitely not in we are providing the umbrella ideas and strategy, but not the umbrella organization.
That's very helpful. Um, so what do you think is what's going to contribute to the success of this effort, and what is the greatest risk or threat to it just being another plan on the shelf?
I think the way that this gets traction is if we are part of the broader water group that gets the value, the economic value of water front and center in the nation. This whole thing works. We start to get actual movement on water governance. We actually start to get new investments in water. If we can convince the broader public, and especially business leaders and government leaders, that there is an economic value to water security, that we benefit by water being well managed, water being well regulated, water being available for new industries as they come up. If we can just get economic value, economic security, economic competitiveness of America being just in lockstep with with water, then I think that that will enable us to get a whole bunch of these strategies off the ground. If water continues to just be like a second thought after energy, or a second thought after biodiversity, or certainly a third thought after climate, then this will be another report on the shelf. As we always say, water if climate is the shark, then water is its teeth. We really need the same thing to be that the economy is dependent on water, that the economy is part and parcel with water, and so that's the biggest thing that we need to move forward.
Great, thank you. How, as you're developing some of these, partnerships, you're seeking coalitions to carry some of this work forward, how would you encourage funders or nonprofits to be engaged or at least learn about the work?
Yeah, so we'll be again releasing the report February 5th. There's what we call a core group. There's about 15 of us that have been part of this work since the very beginning. And the overall Aspen National Water Strategy group is about 30 people. So any of those people would be more than happy to speak ad nauseum about the work that we've done. But I think myself or my co-conspirator, Nusha Ajami, at Lawrence Berkeley National Lab, we're the ones that are kind of holding the whole piece together. And I think that we already have organizations and people in mind to reach out to say, a lot of people think that this is a priority, and your organization is really well positioned to take it forward and to really advocate on these other organizations' behalf to move that particular topic forward and to be able to articulate on their behalf of how it fits into this broader national water security topic and issue and strategy as well.
Great. Great. Well, thanks, Martin. It's really helpful to learn about this, and thank you for all the work that you and the team have been doing.